At 6:30 a.m., my daughter-in-law Erin was screaming my name so loud the neighbors probably heard her. The same woman who called me a dramatic old nurse just 12 hours earlier was now holding my unconscious granddaughter, begging me to save her life. And the worst part? I saw this coming the night before. Let me tell you about the people in this story, because understanding them will help you understand why this nightmare happened. My name is Diane. I'm 58 years old, and I spent 30 years as a registered nurse before retiring last year. When you've seen what I've seen in emergency rooms and pediatric wards, you develop what some people call paranoia, but what I call life-saving awareness. Then there's Erin, my 9-year-old daughter-in-law. She's smart, successful in marketing, and absolutely devoted to her daughter. But Erin has this need to prove she's got everything under control, especially when it comes to parenting. She married my son Trevor 3 years ago, and honestly, I adored her from day one. She brought this energy and confidence into our family that was refreshing. But somewhere along the way, my nursing background started feeling like criticism to her. Trevor, my 1-year-old son, works construction and has always been the peacemaker in our family. He loves his wife fiercely and respects his mother deeply, which puts him in an impossible position when we clash. He's one of those men who thinks if he just stays neutral, everything will work itself out. Sometimes that works, but sometimes it makes everything worse. And then there's the reason this whole story exists, baby Nora, my 8-month-old granddaughter. She's Trevor and Erin's first child, and my first grandchild. This little girl has curly brown hair, the biggest blue eyes you've ever seen, and a smile that could melt your heart from across the room. She's curious about everything, always reaching for things, always exploring. That curiosity is beautiful, but it's also exactly why I worry so much. See, when you've been a nurse for 3 decades, you don't just see a baby exploring. You see a baby who could pull a lamp cord, stick something in an electrical outlet, or grab a bottle of cleaning chemicals. You've held too many mothers while they sobbed in hospital corridors. You've seen how quickly joy can turn to tragedy, how one moment of inattention can change everything forever. But here's what made this situation so complicated. Every time I shared these concerns, Erin heard criticism. When I suggested cabinet locks, she heard, "You don't trust me." When I mentioned water safety, she heard, "You think I'm incompetent." And I get it, I really do. Nobody wants to feel like their parenting is being questioned, especially by their mother-in-law. The tension had been building for months, but this particular weekend was different. Trevor was working a big construction project, pulling overtime shifts, so I came to help with Nora. From the moment I walked into their house, my nursing instincts were screaming warnings. Loose outlet covers that Nora could easily remove, cleaning supplies stored in cabinets she could reach, bathroom hazards that made my stomach drop. But what happened next changed everything. What started as concern turned into the biggest fight we'd ever had, followed by the most terrifying morning of all our lives. And by the end of it, Erin wasn't calling me dramatic anymore, she was calling me a hero. This is the story of how one stubborn nurse, one prideful daughter-in-law, and one curious baby taught our entire family the difference between being overprotective and being right. I've always believed that being a grandmother would be pure joy, but nobody warned me about the unique anxiety that comes with loving someone else's child with your whole heart while having no real authority over their safety. When Erin had Nora 8 months ago, I was over the moon. After 30 years of taking care of other people's children in hospitals, finally had a grandchild of my own to spoil and protect. The first few months were magical. Erin welcomed my help and seemed genuinely interested in my nursing experience. I'd show her how to properly burp Nora, how to check her temperature, how to spot signs of illness. Erin would say things like, "I'm so grateful Trevor's mom is a nurse. You make me feel so confident about everything." But somewhere around Nora's 6th month, things shifted. Maybe it was natural new mother confidence kicking in, or maybe Erin started feeling like my suggestions were becoming too frequent. Instead of asking for my advice, she started getting defensive when I offered it. Small comments about car seat safety became lectures about trusting her judgment. Gentle reminders about baby-proofing became accusations of thinking she was careless. Trevor noticed the tension but handled it the way he handles most conflict, by hoping it would resolve itself. He'd say things like, "Mom, just give her some space to figure things out," or, "Aaron, you know my mom just wants to help, but you can't compromise on safety, and you can't compromise on a grandparent's love either." This particular weekend started innocently enough. Trevor had picked up extra shifts on a big commercial project, working 7 days a week for the past month. Aaron called Tuesday night, sounding exhausted. "Diane, I know this is last minute, but would you be able to come help this weekend? Trevor's working both Saturday and Sunday, and honestly, I'm running on fumes." Of course I said yes. I packed my bag with excitement, planning to cook Aaron's favorite meals, play with Nora, and maybe tackle some light housework. I was looking forward to quality time with both of them without Trevor playing mediator. But from the moment I walked through their front door Friday evening, my trained eyes started cataloging problems. The house was beautiful. Aaron has impeccable taste, but it wasn't safe for an increasingly mobile 8-month-old. Nora was pulling herself up on everything, reaching for anything within arm's length, and putting everything straight into her mouth. I saw electrical outlet covers that were loose enough for curious little fingers to remove. I noticed cleaning supplies in the cabinet under the kitchen sink, exactly at Nora's eye level now that she could crawl and pull herself up. The coffee table had sharp corners at perfect head injury height. The bathroom had no cabinet locks, with medications and toiletries within reach of a determined baby. But what worried me most was Erin's confidence. She'd gotten comfortable with Nora's routine and capabilities, maybe a little too comfortable. She'd put Nora down in the living room and go to the kitchen to make bottles, trusting that Nora would stay put. She'd change loads of laundry while Nora played on her blanket, not realizing how much ground an 8-month-old can cover in 2 minutes. Friday night passed peacefully enough. I bit my tongue when Nora grabbed a magazine and immediately tried to eat it. I quietly moved the cleaning supplies to a higher shelf when Aaron wasn't looking. I told myself I was being overly cautious, that my nursing background was making me paranoid. Saturday morning, Trevor left early for work, kissing Erin goodbye and reminding her to go easy on Mom. The irony of that statement would haunt all of us within 24 hours. Saturday started beautifully. Erin made coffee, I cooked pancakes, and Nora babbled happily in her high chair, spreading mashed banana across every surface within reach. For a moment, it felt like old times, just 3 generations of women enjoying a peaceful morning together. But my nursing instincts don't take breaks, and as the day progressed, I found myself noticing more and more things that made my stomach clench with worry. When Nora dropped her toy and Erin retrieved it from under the couch, I saw dust bunnies and small objects that could be choking, hazards. When Erin opened the cabinet to grab coffee filters, those cleaning supplies I'd moved the night before were somehow back at Nora level again. I tried to bring things up gently. "Erin, honey, have you thought about installing some cabinet locks? Nora's getting so mobile now." She looked at me with barely concealed irritation. "Diane, I watch her constantly. She's never unsupervised near anything dangerous." An hour later, I watched Erin answer a work email while Nora crawled toward the entertainment center where decorative objects sat on low shelves. "Just a thought," I said carefully. "But maybe we could move those glass pieces up higher?" Erin's response was sharper this time. "I've got it handled, Diane. She knows not to touch those." But 8-month-old babies don't know anything about boundaries or danger. They know curiosity, exploration, and the irresistible urge to put everything in their mouths. Erin was applying adult logic to infant behavior, and it terrified me. The breaking point came around 6 o'clock. I was folding laundry in the guest room when I heard bathwater running. Walking past the bathroom, I saw Erin kneeling beside the tub, washing Nora's hair while the baby splashed happily. It was a sweet scene until Erin's phone rang from the bedroom. "Can you watch her for literally 2 seconds?" Erin asked, already standing up. It's my boss about the Morrison account crisis. My heart stopped. Erin, wait! You can't leave a baby alone in water, not even for a second. She paused in the doorway, her face flushing red. Diane, are you seriously going to lecture me about bathing my own daughter? She's sitting up perfectly fine. There's barely 2 inches of water, and I'm talking about walking 10 feet away for 2 seconds. Babies can drown in less than an inch of water, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. It happens in less than 20 seconds, completely silently. I've seen it in emergency rooms, Erin. Please, just either take her out first or ignore the phone. That's when everything exploded. Erin's face went from annoyed to furious in an instant. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You turn every single normal parenting moment into some catastrophic emergency scenario. Do you think I'm some incompetent mother who doesn't know how to take care of her own child? That's not what I'm saying at all, I tried to explain. I'm just sharing what I know from medical experience. Your medical experience? She interrupted. You throw that around like it makes you the ultimate authority on everything. Yes, you were a nurse, but I'm Nora's mother. I spend every day with her. I know her capabilities, and frankly, your constant worst-case scenarios are exhausting. The phone kept ringing. Nora was starting to fuss in the cooling water. I reached for her, but Erin blocked me. Don't. I've got this. Like I've had everything else without your dramatic interference. She answered the phone right there in the rated iname.ol.o.or house bathroom, one eye on Nora, one hand gesturing as she talked about marketing strategies and client demands. My whole body was tense, watching my granddaughter splash in that water while her mother's attention was split. When Trevor came home an hour later, Erin immediately launched into her complaints. Your mother thinks I'm going to kill our daughter through basic parenting activities. Trevor looked exhausted from his long day, and I could see him weighing his words carefully. Mom, he finally said, I know you care, but Erin's right. You need to trust that we know how to take care of our own daughter. We appreciate your concern, but maybe dial it back a little? That night I lay in the guest room feeling hurt, dismissed, and more worried than ever. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling, replaying every word of our argument and questioning everything. Maybe I was being overly cautious. Maybe 30 years of seeing medical emergencies had made me paranoid about normal family life. Maybe Erin was right, and I was turning into one of those overbearing mothers-in-law who couldn't let their adult children parent in peace. But every time I tried to convince myself to let it go, my mind flashed back to the cases I'd seen during my nursing career. The 18-month-old who pulled a pot of boiling water off the stove while his mother answered the door. The 2-year-old who found a bottle of prescription medication that had fallen behind the bathroom counter. The baby who drowned in a bathtub while her exhausted mother stepped away to grab a towel from the hall closet. These weren't stories from medical textbooks or cautionary tales meant to scare new parents. These were real children whose real families never imagined their normal, everyday moments could turn deadly in seconds. And the worst part was how preventable most of these accidents were. Simple safety measures, constant vigilance, understanding that babies have no concept of danger, these things could have saved lives. Around midnight, I made a decision that would haunt me for hours. I would respect Erin's wishes and step back from offering safety advice, but I couldn't completely ignore potential dangers when I saw them. My compromise with my own conscience was to quietly baby-proof what I could reach without being obvious about it. I slipped out of the guest room and tiptoed through their house like some kind of safety burglar. I tightened every electrical outlet cover I could find, making sure they couldn't be easily removed by curious fingers. I moved the cleaning supplies from under the kitchen sink to the highest shelf in the pantry. I checked the water heater temperature. It was set at 140 degrees, hot enough to cause burns in seconds, so I adjusted it down to 120. In the bathroom, I noticed they had no non-slip mats in the tub, so I made a mental note to buy some and leave them as a just thinking of you gift. I secured the toilet, paper holder that was hanging loose, another potential hazard if Nora pulled on it and it fell. As I worked, I felt torn between protecting my granddaughter and respecting my daughter-in-law's autonomy. I wasn't trying to undermine Erin's parenting or prove she was incompetent. I was just using 3 decades of medical knowledge to prevent tragedies I'd seen too many times before. But even as I tightened cabinet latches and moved dangerous objects, I knew this wasn't a real solution. I couldn't baby-proof their entire house in secret, and I couldn't be there every day to watch for new hazards. More importantly, I couldn't build the relationship with Erin that I wanted if I was sneaking around making changes she didn't approve of. Standing in their kitchen at 2 a.m., I made another decision that broke my heart. I would leave Sunday morning instead of staying for our planned family dinner. Clearly, my presence was causing more stress than help. Maybe if I gave them space, Erin would eventually come around to understanding that my concerns came from love, not judgment. I went back to the guest room and quietly packed my bag, folding my clothes with the same careful precision I'd once used to organize medical supplies. Tomorrow, I'd tell them I remembered a commitment back home. I'd hug my granddaughter goodbye, probably for longer than seemed normal, and I'd hope that all my secret baby-proofing would be enough to keep her safe until Erin was ready to hear my concerns. As I finally drifted off to sleep around 3 a.m., I whispered a prayer that I was wrong about everything, that my 30 years of medical experience was just making me paranoid, that love and good intentions would be enough to keep Nora safe. I had no idea that in less than 4 hours, my worst nightmares would come true. At exactly 6:30 a.m., blood-curdling screams shattered the peaceful Sunday morning silence. Diane, help me. Something's wrong with Nora. The terror in Erin's voice sent ice through my veins and had me running down the hallway before I was fully awake. I burst into the bathroom to find my absolute worst nightmare. Erin was kneeling on the bathroom floor, holding Nora's limp, blue-faced body against her chest. Water was everywhere, soaking Erin's pajamas, pooling on the tile floor, dripping from Nora's tiny body. My granddaughter was unconscious, her lips a terrifying shade of blue, her little body completely unresponsive. She won't wake up. She won't breathe. What do I do? Erin sobbed hysterically, her voice cracking with panic. I don't know what to do. Please help her. Every second of my nursing training kicked in instantly. Give her to me right now, I commanded, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I took Nora's lifeless body and immediately began assessing her condition. No pulse, no breathing, skin cold and blue. This was every parent's worst nightmare and every nurse's most critical test. Through her sobs, Erin's confession came pouring out. My boss called about the Morrison account emergency. The client threatened to drop us if we didn't get the new proposal sent by 7 a.m., I thought. I thought she'd be okay for just 1 minute while I grabbed my laptop from the bedroom and sent the files. When I came back, she was face down in the water and she wouldn't move. I positioned Nora on the bathroom floor, tilting her tiny head back and checking her airway for obstructions. Call 911 right now, I told Erin, beginning infant CPR with the precision that comes from years of emergency medical training, 2 fingers on her tiny chest, 30 compressions at the correct depth for her size. Tilt her head, lift her chin, cover her mouth and nose with my mouth, give 2 gentle rescue breaths. Watch for her chest to rise. Come on, baby girl, I whispered between compressions, my hands working automatically while my heart broke into pieces. Come back to Grandma. Come on, Nora. Breathe for me. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Check for pulse. Nothing. Start again. I could hear Erin sobbing on the phone with the 911 dispatcher, trying to give our address between gasps of panic. Please hurry. My baby isn't breathing. My mother-in-law is doing CPR. Time moved differently during those endless minutes. Each compression felt like a lifetime. Each breath I gave her felt like my own life force flowing into her tiny body. I was dimly aware of Trevor arriving home from his early shift, of his voice joining Erin's in panicked prayer, but my entire focus was on bringing my granddaughter back to life. Then, after what felt like hours but was probably only 3 minutes, Nora suddenly coughed. Water came up from her lungs, and she took a gasping, choking breath. Then another. And then, the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard in my entire life. She started crying. "She's breathing." I called out, tears streaming down my face as I turned her on her side to help clear more water from her lungs. "She's okay. She's breathing." When the paramedics arrived, they found a crying but responsive baby, her color returning to normal, her vital signs stabilizing. As they worked to assess her condition and prepare her for transport to the hospital, Erin collapsed against me, sobbing harder than I'd ever seen anyone cry. "You were right about everything," she wailed, clinging to me like a lifeline. "I'm so sorry I called you dramatic. I almost lost her because I was too stubborn to listen to you." "How do you ever forgive someone for being so stupid and stubborn? You saved her life. You saved my baby's life." In that moment, holding my daughter-in-law while she sobbed and watching paramedics tend to my breathing granddaughter, I realized that being right had never felt so devastating. The drive to the hospital felt like the longest journey of our lives, even though it only took 12 minutes. I sat in the back of the ambulance holding Erin's hand while a paramedic monitored Nora's vital signs. My granddaughter was alert and crying, the most reassuring sounds in the world, but we all knew how close we'd come to an unthinkable tragedy. At the emergency room, doctors confirmed what we hoped to hear. Nora would be completely fine. She'd suffered what they called a non-fatal drowning incident, with no signs of brain damage or lasting physical effects. The quick CPR response had prevented any serious harm, but she'd need to stay for observation to ensure no secondary complications developed. As we sat in the pediatric ward waiting room, Erin couldn't stop apologizing. Her hands shook as she spoke, her voice hoarse from crying. "Diane, I need you to understand something. When I called you dramatic, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to prove to myself that I was a competent mother who didn't need constant guidance. But I realize now that your concerns weren't dramatic, they were life-saving knowledge from someone who's seen what can go wrong." Trevor, who had been unusually quiet since arriving at the hospital, finally spoke up. "Mom, I owe you a huge apology too. I should have supported you when you raised those safety concerns. I was so worried about keeping peace between you and Erin that I ignored your expertise. Your experience could have prevented this whole nightmare if we'd just listened. But what touched me most was what Erin said next. I spent so much energy trying to prove I didn't need help that I put my daughter in danger. Every safety concern you raised was based on real medical experience, real emergencies you'd seen, real children you'd tried to save. When I called you dramatic, I was really just afraid of admitting that I didn't know everything about keeping Nora safe." The days that followed transformed our entire family dynamic. Erin asked me to come back the next weekend, but this time with a different purpose. "I want to learn everything you can teach me about child safety," she said. "I want you to walk through our entire house and tell me every potential hazard you see." We spent hours together baby-proofing their home properly, cabinet locks on every door that contained anything potentially harmful, outlet covers that couldn't be removed by curious fingers, non-slip mats in the bathtub, safety latches on toilet seats, corner guards on sharp furniture. We even installed a monitoring system for the bathroom that would alert her phone if water was running for more than 5 minutes. More importantly, we talked about the psychology of child safety. How babies have no concept of danger. How the most common accidents happen during routine activities when parents feel most confident. How experienced voices shouldn't be dismissed as paranoia, but welcomed as wisdom earned through years of seeing both wonderful outcomes and heartbreaking tragedies. Erin now tells everyone about how her dramatic mother-in-law saved her daughter's life. She's become an advocate for listening to experienced family members, especially when child safety is involved. She jokes that she'd rather be overcautious than underprepared, and that some things are too important for pride. Looking back on this experience, I learned that sometimes love means speaking up even when people don't want to hear it. Sometimes being called dramatic is a small price to pay for protecting the people you love. And sometimes the most important conversations are the ones that feel uncomfortable in the moment, but save lives in the long run. Experience isn't paranoia, it's wisdom earned through years of seeing how quickly life can change. When someone with that experience tries to share it with you, especially when it comes to child safety, listen. Because the difference between being overprotective and being right can literally be the difference between a normal morning and the worst day of your life. Trust me, I know.